Dear students, let's start 12th chapter of history, India after independence. In this chapter, we'll study after independence which challenges were faced by Indian people and Indian government. India after independence. In the previous chapter, we discussed till the independence that how India got freedom in August 1947. Here, the first topic, a new and divided nation. So we'll discuss about the problems and challenges faced by India after independence. If we conclude the challenges or the problems faced by India after independence, some of them like problem of communal rights. After partition, Hindus and Muslims were divided in the communal rights and communal violence. Second problem was of refugees, settlement of refugees. Third problem was of unemployment and poverty, removal of unemployment and poverty. Fourth was development of country, agricultural development and industrial development. So many challenges were there. So let's start a new and divided nation. When India became independent in August 1947, it faced a series of very great challenges. As a result of partition, 8 million refugees. 8 million refugees had come into the country from what was now Pakistan. So from Pakistan, these people came to India. These people had to be found homes and jobs because they were completely homeless, jobless. They were having nothing because they came from Pakistan. Then there was the problem of the princely states. This was the second problem. Almost 500 of them, each ruled by a Maharaja or a Nawab. If we see the data, then total 565 princely states were there in India at that time. And these were ruled by Maharaja, Nawab and princely houses. They had to be persuaded to join the new nation. The problem of the refugees and of the princely states had to be addressed immediately. In the longer term, the new nation had to adopt a political system that would best serve the hopes and expectations of its population because they became free from the British. This is the figure 1. You can see this picture. Thousands gathered on the occasion of the flag hosting ceremony at the Red Fort on 15th August 1947. At that time in 1947, India's population was very large, almost 345 million. And this population was divided into various groups on the basis of castes, on the basis of religion. Hindu community was in majority, and Indians who practiced other faiths. The citizens of this vast land spoke many different languages. It means on the basis of languages, the people were divided. And there were many different kinds of dresses. It means cultural differences were there. Different kinds of food and practice of different professions. How could they be made to live together in one nation state? While British were very powerful and they united the country under their rule, but now India was free. To the problem of unity was added the problem of development. So this was another problem, development. At independence, the vast majority of Indians lived in the villages. It means it was basically rural based country. Farmers and peasants depended on the monsoon. They were not having any developed resources for irrigation and for agriculture for their survival. So did the non-farm sector of the rural economy, for if the crops failed, barbers, carpenters, weavers and other service groups would not get paid for their services either. In the cities, factory workers lived in crowded slums with little access to education or health care. They were also not having the good facilities for them. Clearly, the new nation had to lift its masses out of poverty by increasing the productivity of agriculture and by promoting new job creating industries. So now what was the challenge in front of India? To remove poverty, this was the biggest problem, and agricultural development and industrialization also, industrial development also. Unity and development had to go hand in hand. If the divisions between different sections of India was not healed, they could result in violent and costly conflicts. High castes fighting with low castes, Hindus, Muslims, and so on. So, this was also very necessary to set up unity and with the development also. At the same time, if the fruits of economic development did not reach the broad masses of the population, it could create fresh divisions. For example, between the rich and poor, between cities and countryside, means rural areas, villages, between regions of India that were prosperous and regions that lagged behind. It means poor regions with great poverty, the areas. So, this was also another problem or challenge in front of India after independence. So, dear students, I hope that you are understanding what kind of problems and challenges were faced by India after independence. Now, a constitution is written. You know that for writing the constitution, a constituent assembly was elected in India in 1946 and it started its work on 9 December. Its first meeting was held 9 December 1946 and it completed its work on 26 November 1949. It means constitution was completed. Some 300 Indians had a series of meetings on the country's political future. 389 members were there in the Constituent Assembly. The meetings of this Constituent Assembly were held in New Delhi, but the participants came from all over India and from different political parties. These discussions resulted in the framing of Indian Constitution, which was adopted on 26 January 1950. So, what were the feature? One feature of the Constitution was its adoption of universal adult franchise. It means equal right to vote for all Indians. The age was decided 21. So after getting the age of 21, all Indians will get the right to vote. Later it was reduced in 18 years according to 61st Amendment of the Constitution in 1989. So this is another matter, but you have to remember this. This was a revolutionary step, for never before had Indians been allowed to choose their own leaders. In the other countries such as United Kingdom and the United States, means USA, this right had been granted in stages. First, only men of property had the vote. Then men who were educated were also added on. Later, working class men got the vote only after a long struggle. Finally, after a bitter struggle of their own, American and British women were granted the vote. On the other hand, soon after independence, India chose to grant this right to all its citizens, regardless of gender, class, or education. Means, without any kind of discrimination, without any kind of differences, all the people got the right to vote. Second feature. So, this was the first feature. First feature was universal adult franchise, means right to vote. Second feature of the Constitution was that it guaranteed equality before the law to all the citizens. Under the Article 14 of the Constitution, all the citizens will be considered equal before the law, regardless of their caste, religious affiliation. There were some Indians who wished that the political system of the new nation be based on Hindu ideals and that India itself be run as Hindu state. They pointed to the example of Pakistan. There Muslims were preferred. A country created explicitly to protect and further the interest of a particular religious community, the Muslims. However, the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was of the opinion that India must not become a Hindu Pakistan. Clear? So, on the basis of religion, there will not any kind of discrimination there in the country. Besides Muslims, India also had large populations of Sikhs, Christians, as well as many Parsis and Jains. Under the new constitution, they would have the same rights as Hindus, the same opportunities when it came to seek jobs in the government or the private sectors, the same rights before the law. So in this way, equality before the law, it was adopted Now, third feature of the constitution was that it offered special privileges for the poorest and most disadvantaged classes or Indians. It means this was the reservation. The practice of untouchability, described as slur and a blot on the fair name of India, was abolished. According to Article 17 of the Constitution, untouchability is completely abolished. Hindu temples previously open to only the higher castes were thrown open to all, including the former untouchables. After a long debate, the Constituent Assembly also recommended that a certain percentage of seats in legislatures as well as jobs in government be reserved for members of the lowest castes. So these people also got the reservation, as we discussed before a short while. It had been argued by some that untouchable, or as they were now known, Harijan candidates, did not have good enough grades to get into the prestigious Indian administrative service. But as one member of the Constituent Assembly, H.J. Khandekar, argued, it was the upper castes who were responsible for the Harijans being unfit today. So, addressing his more privileged colleagues, Khandekar said, here we can read the extract. We were suppressed for thousands of years. You engaged us in your service to serve your own ends and suppressed us to such an extent that neither our minds nor our bodies nor even our hearts work, nor are we able to march forward. So here the responsible was the upper castes. Along with the former untouchables, the Adivasis or scheduled tribes, STs, and Harijans or untouchables, SCs, were also granted reservation in seats and jobs like the scheduled castes. These Indians too had been deprived and discriminated against. The tribals had been deprived of modern health, care, and education, while their lands and forests had been taken away by more powerful outsiders. The new privileges granted them by the constitution were meant to make amends for this. It means the particular areas which are having the majority of scheduled tribes, there the special protection was given to these states like Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, etc. And in the constitution, the Constituent Assembly spent many days discussing the powers of the central government. So, about the division of the powers between the center and state, three lists were maintained. Only a strong center, it was argued, would be in a position to think and plan for the well-being of the country as a whole. Other members felt that the provinces should have greater autonomy and freedom. So this was the problem and discussion, and this was the issue of argument in the Constituent Assembly. A member from Mysore feared that under the present system, democracy is centered in Delhi and it is not allowed to work in the same sense and spirit in the rest of the country. A member from Madras insisted that the initial responsibility for the well-being of the people of the provinces should rest with the provincial governments. So it was the discussion and argument on the issue of the separation of powers between or distribution of the powers between states and center. The constitution sought to balance these competing claims by providing three lists of subjects. Union list consists of 97 subjects. These subjects are in hands of central government like defense, taxes, foreign affairs, railways, banking, etc. State list consists of 66 subjects. On these subjects only state government can make laws, right? And concurrent list consists of 47 subjects and both the governments can make the laws. But if there is clash or on the same subject, both of the government, center and state make the laws, then central government passes the rule that will be considered final. Another major debate in the Constituent Assembly concerned about language, that which language will be adopted as national language. Many members believed that English language should leave India with the British rulers. It means English language should not be more in India. Its place, they argued, should be taken by Hindi. However, those who did not speak Hindi, non-Hindi speaking states like in southern India, speaking in the assembly, T.T. Krishnamachari conveyed a warning on behalf of people of the south, some of whom threatened to separate from India if Hindi was imposed on them. It means they are non-Hindi speaking states, so they cannot afford Hindi. A compromise was finally arrived at, namely that while Hindi would be the official language of India and English would be used in the courts, the services, and communications between one state and another. So in this way, this was the final solution of this problem. Next one is many Indians contributed to the framing of the constitution. But perhaps the most important role was played by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, because he was the chairman of the drafting committee, B.R. Ambedkar, and under whose supervision the document was finalized. In his final speech to the Constituent Assembly, B.R. Ambedkar pointed out that political democracy had to be accompanied by economic and social democracy. It means economically there should not be high differences between the people, and social discrimination also should be removed from the country. Giving the right to vote would not automatically lead to the removal of other inequalities such as between rich and poor or between upper and lower castes. It means you give the right to vote to the people, but it will not eliminate the difference between the rich and poor. Clear? The difference between the upper castes and lower castes. So with the new constitution, he said India was going to enter into a new life of contradictions. Contradictions means here you have the rights according to the constitution, but what is there in fact in the society? So this will be the contradiction according to the ideas or views of B.R. Ambedkar. In politics, we will have equality, as he is saying that in social and economic life we will have inequality, and this is the fact today. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man, one vote, and one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. So here, the ideas of B.R. Ambedkar at that time are true at present also, right? So, dear students, these were the topics we have discussed today in this video. The rest of the topics of the chapter will be discussed in the next video. Thank you. Have a nice day.